Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone, whoever, few people that like to listen to these videos. Having my afternoon wine when I do these videos. It's late in the afternoon, about 5 o'clock, and I start to make a little bit of dinner. And what's interesting is I'm not really hungry. I have not really had very much of an appetite after my beloved Richard passed. Um, I go to the market and I get things, and I find myself getting things as though Richard were still here. Um, and I notice that, like I'm buying things like I'm making dinner for him, and when I have the groceries in the refrigerator and I start to make the dinner, I think, oh, okay, I'm only going to make a little bit of this. Like before, I knew how many Brussels sprouts to make, how much rice to make with Richard. Um, if I was making lasagna, I would make like a nice big lasagna that he would love to munch on any time of the day because lasagna is great, cold or hot. Um, and I made this lasagna not long ago in the same glass um, what do you call it, like the glass pan. I can't remember, but you know what you may put the lasagna in with the noodles and everything, and the glass um, container for the lasagna. I I made this big lasagna, and it was almost like, okay, here you go, Richard. I'm making this big lasagna. In the back of my mind, I was thinking I was making this lasagna for him, and then when I made it, I thought, I can't eat I can't eat this whole lasagna. Uh, and then I start to think, well, I'll cut half of it and give it to one of the renters that might like it. And I've done that before. I've made so much because I'm still cooking as though Richard were still here. I made this gigantic potato salad, for an example, back a number of months ago, and it was a spectacular potato salad that he would have loved. He loved my potato salad, and I made this big potato salad, and I realized he's not here to eat it. What am I doing? Why am I making these meals as though he were still here? And yet, when I was cooking it and when I was making it, it made me feel good. That's the thing about it. It made me happy to be cooking something because it made me feel like he was still with me, and it gave me something to do. It was almost like a meditation, almost like cooking in prayer. Maybe somebody should come up with a vlog, a cooking vlog called Cooking with Prayer. I just came up with that. Someone's probably going to steal it and get hundreds of thousands of views. Well, but cooking is something that has always made me feel happy. When Richard knew that around 2 o'clock, that's when I would get all my stuff together to make whatever dinner I was going to make. Usually they were pretty simple dinners because we're vegans. Sometimes we're vegetarians. By that I mean sometimes we'd have a little bit of dairy, but most of the meals were totally vegan. But I would start to get all the stuff and prepare. Like around 2 o'clock, I'd start having a little sip of wine because I like to cook with wine. I like to sip with my wine while I'm cooking. It just gets me in the mood of, how much, I want to put for seasoning. It's like an intuition thing when I cook. Like, okay, how much rosemary do I want to put in? And while I'm cooking, I have a little wine. I think, okay, this is a good. And then if I'm stir frying like an Italian dish with onions and garlic and basil. I'll have my wine and I'll throw in a tad of wine while I'm doing it. You know, it's kind of like the Galloping Gourmet, if you remember that show way back. Anybody that's as old as me, I'm 70, and I don't know how many of you have remembered the Galloping Gourmet. He was got into a little trouble with his alcohol. I looked him up on YouTube, and he went through some kind of spiritual transformation, and he doesn't drink anymore, but he still loves cooking. But it was kind of entertaining to see him cooking, and he would be throwing in, whatever while he's drinking. Some alcohol goes really good with some meals, and he would throw in a little this and throw in a little that. And but I'm glad that he went through some kind of, like, it was, I looked up his videos, and he just he's older now, of course. I'm 70, so that would make him, I don't know, like, he's got to be easily, I don't even know if he passed away, because I remember that show when I was very, very young. So maybe he's in his late 80s or something. But he started to go through this transformation, like a spiritual transformation. He was doing things that was kind of like going back to a very simple life. I think he bought a home somewhere in the country, and he was growing his own food, and he just lived a very, very simple life. His kitchen was very simple. It wasn't extravagant like what you see on some of these cooking shows, these big extravagant kitchens with, an island and all the pans and pots, and the kitchen goes on for a mile long or something. I'm exaggerating, but his kitchen, it was like a farm, a little country farm kitchen. Reminded me of my kitchen. It's small, but it's enough where I can do what I need to do to cut up with whatever vegetables, whatever I need to cook. But I've been feeling, like I want to cook for Richard more so today. I've been feeling that, and I started to make this beautiful salad, and I was thinking, I'm making this for you, Richard. And then I got a organic pizza crust, totally all organic, very thin, so it wouldn't hurt his teeth, because as he got older, he had, he was trying to take care of his teeth. And he always had very strong teeth, but he cursed the dentist that ruined his teeth, and I gotta agree. This dentist really screwed up on his teeth for no reason. And Richard had absolutely perfect, beautiful teeth. He was born that way, with these perfect, gorgeous, just beautiful teeth. I mean, when he smiled, it was just, I envied it, because my teeth are a little bit crooked, like I got one overlapping here, there, and there, but they're still my real teeth. They're not phony. Most people these days just have phony teeth now. But anyway, I was, making this little pizza, and I was thinking, I'm making this pizza for you, Richard. And I was in that frame of mind, like, I want to make this for you. I wish you were here so you could have this pizza. And I made this really delicious salad with mushrooms and tomatoes and cucumber and onions, and it's just a really lovely salad. And I realized I'm at the end of the month, and maybe that was why I was going through the motions of wanting to cook for him, wanting to make something for him, wanting to make an offering to him. And then I realized that's exactly what it is. I wanted to make an offering to him. Um, I wanted to say, Richard, this is for you. And I love you forever. I love you forever. And I'm still cooking for you, whether you're here or not. And I'm not going to be able to eat all that. But you help yourself to as much as you want from the spiritual realm. I knew this would happen. Oh, God. Give me a minute. I knew I was going to cry because this is, we're getting to the full moon in the 7th month of when Richard passed away. And that's why I'm feeling really emotional. I'm always emotional. I'm always thinking about him, and I cry every day. There's nothing out of the ordinary with that. I literally cry every single day. There's not a day that doesn't go by when at some moment I don't cry. And I don't know when that's going to end. I don't know. But it has to happen. I can't help it. And as long as I can't help it, it's going to happen. And I'm not going to stop it from happening because it's my way of dealing with his death. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. And so it's going on the 7th month, and I realized I should get a tissue. Hold on. Okay. I realized that I bought some beautiful flowers for Richard on Memorial, and that's when I realized 7 months. My God, 7 months. How can it be that 7 months have passed since he passed away? And I know where he is, there's no time. There's no time. Like, if I were to die today and came to him soul to soul, he wouldn't even know about 7 months. To him, if anything, it would just be a blink. It would just be a blink between the time that we separated, so to speak. We're not really separated, but I'm talking about a blink when we were both in our physical bodies. And if I left my physical body and joined him, and I said, it's been 7 months, he wouldn't even, to him, it would just be a blink of the eye. Because where he is there's no time and there's no space. There's just this beautiful God's energy that he's entered into that's eternal. It's infinite. Eternally infinite. And it's hard for us in our physical bodies, in this physical world where we measure everything by materialism and time and space. It's hard for us to comprehend what it would be like to live in a limitless, eternal realm. But we are reminded of that from time to time. Why do you think people are so drawn to sunsets? no matter where they might be in the world. You could be in the worst um, war zone, horrible place in the world of rubble and depression and poverty. But when the sun goes down, there's something that happens to everything where everything becomes beautiful. And I'm reminded of that movie, oh gosh, why can't I remember titles? American something, I can't remember now, but it was, shoot, I can't remember. But I remember the scene, and the scene was American Beauty. How could I forget? Well, American Beauty. If you remember the scene of the young man that with his girlfriend, and he did this little video film of this bag that was just dancing around in this alley, and the leaves were blowing around, and the bag was blowing up and down, and he filmed it, and the words that he said behind that brought a perception of showing that everything is lit by some kind of divine source behind what we see. And that little bag dancing around was part of a reflection of that divine order that he perceived, and he captured it and saw the beauty of it. And it's like when we are drawn to a sunset, no matter where you are, you could be in a horrible place, but if you look at how the sun ends up reflecting and bringing everything, like as though there was a golden sheen over everything, just for a few minutes. And why people especially are drawn to sunsets at the ocean, on the beaches. You know, how they'll stop talking. They might be with their girlfriend and boyfriend, they might be with their family, they might have been going blah, 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 and then all of a sudden, I've seen this over in Kauai, for an example. Every time at the sunset, and Maui, mostly in all the Hawaiian Islands, every time as the sun sets, especially on the beach, everybody just goes silent and watches that sunset. Now, why do you think they're drawn to that, and why do you think they're so quiet and silent and drawn to that? It's because their souls remember something about the eternal, and those sunsets remind them of their true home. And that's why when we look at the beautiful color, why people come and they take photos, you know, of the sunset. And the more the spectacular the sunset is, the more they're drawn into it, like they're just fascinated by it, because it's a memory. It's something inside them, in their souls, remember something godlike when they look at those sunsets. And I have been thinking about these things, these thoughts, and trying to remember that Richard is really, he's not dead. He's not dead. You know, it hurts my feelings, I gotta admit, when I went to the memorial and I found these at Ralph. They had these beautiful red, white, and blue, like the American flag, beautiful flowers. Oh, they were just gorgeous. And they're not real, but they are as close as you can get to being real. And I thought, this is great because they can be there forever. I don't have to worry about them dying. I don't have to worry about watering them. I do bring fresh flowers there. Um, but these were flowers that can be there, you know, forever as long as someone doesn't steal them, which is something I'm a little worried about because even though I put my little notice of surveillance, the little flag that says you're being watched, I noticed I had 3 purple shells that Richard and I collected in Kauai, and they were in the ground. I remember I was thinking about maybe moving them a little closer. They just grew in to the ground. It was like, it was something spiritual. Like those shells were there to be there at his grave. And some, pardon my expression, but whoever is involved in looking at these graves and taking things, someone took one of the shells. So now there's only 2. I wanted 3. 3 is a special number. And some asshole, but in order to take that shell, they had to really dig in to get it. Because those shells they had grown into the ground. And someone had to probably pry that shell out and to steal it. And I just think, can you not leave the grave alone, whoever you are? And I can't help thinking, it's people that work at that memorial. I really think it's people that work at that memorial, whoever they hire there. And I've seen things that have been broken in the Jewish memorial section. I've seen, when I walk through with very respectfully, and I actually enjoy looking at the names and seeing their dates. I never thought I would want to do that because before Richard died, I thought I don't want to be anywhere near a cemetery. Woo, But it's actually so beautiful, and I really have come to enjoy looking at the different names and the families, and their families have left certain mementos there, and I noticed like some of them have just been completely broken, like little clay. I don't know, there was one thing that was like a little clay thing that was really pretty, that was painted, and it was put on one of the graves, and someone just cracked it and broke it. I don't know what's going on in the world today. The hatred is just disgusting. But anyway, where Richard's grave is, it's right on kind of like on the boundary. So I don't know, like people can get away with doing things without. They need more security, is what I'm getting at. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And when I go, I'm going to go and talk to the people there because I bought my own grave next to Richard's. And I'm going to tell them, you need to get more security. Okay, that's a side point. But anyway, I have been thinking about how it's hard for me to conceive that 7 months have gone by. And I make these dinners. Like I have this little pizza that I made and some salad. I'm not even hungry. I don't even want it. That's the way, I enjoyed making it because it made me feel like Richard was still here and I was making dinner for him. But I don't have an appetite to eat anything, and it's been that way since he passed. I know people that have lost their loved ones. I'm sure they're going through the same thing where they just, they don't feel like eating very much. They lose their appetites, and in a way it's kind of like losing your will to live. And it's there's no how can I say, it it happens a lot that when your soulmate, and I believe Richard is my soulmate. I think God brought me to him. The way it happened, I think God brought us together, and I know God brought us together. Um, we went through some rough patches together in the beginning, we did, but there's a reason why there was one connection to another connection to another connection and another connection, and the connection turned out to be where we were both brought together. That's not coincidence. That's destiny. It's God's destiny. Now, that's not to say we don't have free will. We can change things in the pattern of that destiny and change our destiny. But I know that the way that happened, how my roommate happened to be the secretary for Richard, who introduced me to Richard, who also, his father met me, and his father said you should get together with me. He said, she's very sweet, kind girl, you should meet her. And which is the greatest compliment I could ever receive, for Poppy to want to recommend me to his son. And I'll never forget that. Thank you, Poppy. But Poppy was part of the destiny of bringing me and Richard, because Richard told me, yeah, my dad told me I should meet with you. So between, his secretary and his father, and the connections were no coincidence. And I felt in my heart like I had known Richard. That's another thing. He felt familiar to me, which made me feel like we have been together in other lives. I know he's my soulmate. And I know somehow that we made this plan, and he told me before we were both reincarnated back into this earth. He said, when we both get together, I'm going to have to leave you first. And it's going to be hard on you emotionally. But that is what you have to go through, because you have to learn some things without my help. And I will be there to watch over you, but you've got to learn things so you know what it is to take care of things and be responsible for things. Because Richard was always the one that was responsible for everything. He took care of everything. He took care of the taxes. He took care of the bills. He helped pay, for my own expenses. I never had to worry about a thing, because he took care of everything. And anything, even with me, I got so scared because I had this house that my mom passed on to me, and I needed him to help me on how to deal with that. And now I have to learn how to deal with it on my own. But that's part of the destiny. But I know we'll be back together again when my time comes. I know we'll be back together again, but it was part of the plan, the destiny, where he had to leave before me in order for me to learn how to be responsible for certain things. And that was part of my spiritual path. And I got very used to him taking care of everything, and I took all of that for granted. And there have been thoughts that I have had that when I see, his savings, he was very good about his savings. He didn't overspend on anything. He never spent anything on himself. If he had to spend money, it was always for repairs for the rentals or anything, but he never. And I remember, we talked back a number of years ago. I mean, we're going back maybe 15 years, where we talked about getting an endless pool, one of those endless pools. They're small, but you can just, they're great for exercise. That's the main thing. They're like pools, but they're miniature pools, and they have this thing set up where the water rushes through and you're swimming, and it gives you exercise. And we could have put plexiglass around it and warmed it with propane and solar. And for years we talked about it, and he never did it. And I'd been thinking over and over again, my God, you had the money. For Christ's sakes, you had the fucking money. If I had known what I know now, I would have said, I don't want the damn money. I want you to, it's your money that you earned. Do something with it for yourself. If I had to take it over again, I would say, Richard, just take the money that you earned. It's your money. Build a pool. That's what you always wanted. But he never, it was like he had a block in his brain not to do anything for himself. And if I had to do it over again, I would say to him, no, that's it. If I have to pay for it, I will pay for it with my money. But we're going to get that gosh darn pool in there so that you can enjoy swimming, because that's something that you've always loved to do. And it probably would have added 10 more years to his life if he had a pool. Even a regular pool. We could have done it. He had enough money to put a regular pool in. But even an endless pool, I mean, it wouldn't have cost that much. And he had the land to do it. He had the water to do it. I would have, if I had to do it over again, I would have done it myself. If he had gone over, for an example, back, because during the summer he had bad allergies, and that's usually when he went to Hawaii to get out, and I would join him, and we'd spend the summers over in Kauai. If I had a chance and he went over to Kauai, I would build the damn pool while he was in Kauai without him knowing it, and have him come home and have the pool. But these are the thoughts that I have now, It's like someone would say, well, what's the point? He's gone on. He's in the next realm. You don't have to, sit there feeling guilty that, you didn't get him to get a pool. Wherever he is right now, he could have any pool he wants. Someone might say that to me. I know. But it's just, when you love someone, you go back and you reflect on things that you wish you had been able to do. It's just the way it works. You can't help reflecting and thinking, what could I have done to make his life better? And then I think, well, that was a great idea. You should have done it, a little too late now. He's not here. But Richard, I'm telling you, on your 7th month passing, if I could have done that for you, I wish I had done it for you. And if anything, maybe I wish that I could have just pushed you into doing it. You know, if maybe I could have just said, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. I'll take whatever savings I have and I will do it. And maybe, that would finally motivate him. you know. He never wanted to do anything for himself. It was like a block in his head. I don't know whether it came from his father or what, but he had no problem doing it for his son. He had no problem doing anything for me, but for himself, he always held back. And he had the money to do it, and yet he still held back. And when I look at his savings, that's what makes me sad. That's what makes me so sad, because I think you had the money to do it. Why didn't you do it? Because he had a block that he's not supposed to do anything for himself. That's why. Even with his vehicles, he never got a newer vehicle. Okay, he got like a fairly nice 2004 truck. It's very nice. The inside is like new. But he had the money to get an upgrade from that. He could have got a nice truck around, like a 2016 truck. He could have got a really, really beautiful truck. He got one. The paint's all faded on it. He got a good deal. It was $4,000. It's a good truck. It is. I love that truck because it was his. And the inside is beautiful, and he did good on it. I'm not saying he didn't do good on it. It's dumb to buy a brand new truck. But if you can find a really good used truck, you can just pay it off, and you don't owe anything monthly. But I'm just saying that he deserved something even better than that truck. As nice as that truck is, he deserved a truck that had nice paint, that wasn't faded. He deserved a truck that was beautiful. And I'm not saying that one isn't beautiful, but I'm just saying I wish that he always didn't want to spend very much on himself. That's what I'm getting at. And there's something you can admire about that, but it also makes me sad, because he worked so hard, he earned all the money, and he deserved better, is what I'm getting at. He deserved better. If it had been me, he wouldn't have had any problem paying for, okay, you want a 2015 Prius? I'll pay for it. With me, no problem. But with himself, it was like he was not allowed to do that for himself. And I don't know where that came from. I don't know why he had to feel that way about himself. But I just wanted to say, this is the 7th month, and I miss you so much, Richard. I will never stop missing you. But I know we're soulmates, and I know whatever this destiny is, because God brought us together, God will bring us back together again. So, thank you for listening.